I don't know if you guys know this, but when you come out on YouTube and you have a story about earning financial independence at a relatively young age, you sometimes attract a following from what's called the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. And I made the mistake of thinking the FIRE movement would welcome somebody who has evidence and proof of getting there. Unfortunately, I got there via real estate investing. And what I quickly learned is the FIRE movement hates real estate investors. I believe Dion has tried to interact with these folks on their Facebook groups and probably experienced some of the same stuff. So I just wanted to ask Dion, why the heck do the FIRE movement hate real estate investors? I don't get it.
It's unfortunate. And yes, I try to interact in not all, as many of the financial forums as I can to find people, because I'm the one, there's that analogy that you use as far as reaching financial freedom, one rental at a time. You have the parking lot where everybody's kind of hanging out, having that tailgate party. And there's all the different options to invest: crypto, stocks, business, real estate. And if I can get them into the stands, that's where you show all of the different ways you can start investing one rental at a time to get on the field, to go from thinking about it to taking action, doing the work, and getting on the field. And then Matt, the lumberjack landlord, you're on the landlord, you're a landlord now what? Mm-hmm. When it comes to financial groups, there are people who will never own a rental, right? So this is the opinion I don't really care for. They've never owned a rental. They will never own a rental. They heard something about a fictitious uncle 35 years ago who had a bad experience, so they've just got it bad taste in their mouth. They're never going to own it.
Right.
And here's where I benefited from it. I found people in those forums who used to own rentals. Ooh. Their opinions I actually kind of cared about. I thought, okay, I was looking at retiring. I'm coming up, this is 2 years ago. I started getting ready to retire. I thought the cash flow started being enough. I liked my job, but time freedom is important. But I was trying to find people who failed, who used to own rentals. What could make me sell all my rentals and go back to work? I was looking for that reason in case it existed, and it doesn't. I found that there were a lot of people who had some one-off experiences: death, divorce, whatever it was, bad tenants in consecutive lines, not doing the work, not learning it right, and they got out. But consistently across the board, almost everybody who used to own a rental didn't raise the rent. So one of the most common advices that pieces of advice that you will see in the Choose FI, Mr. Money Mustache, all of the forums that aren't even really open to real estate, if somebody says, I have a rental, I'm thinking of raising the rent, they get pounced on. Hundreds of comments from people who probably never owned a rental or used to own rentals. They will say, don't raise the rent, you'll lose a good tenant. Instead of following that up with the second half of that sentence, instead of losing a good tenant, you will lose a good asset. So you are a pariah in their group community because there are so many people who have this altruistic belief that housing should be free. Because the FIRE community, which I'm not actually a part of, right? The financial independence, retire early, the retire early part never really mattered to me. I actually used to make the joke with you, I'm not even sure I'm going to retire late. I liked my job that much. Time freedom went out. So I wasn't in the trying to retire early part. I wouldn't own a stock if it came with free tacos.
I wouldn't own a stock if it came with free tacos. That's awesome.
If I had money in retirement accounts, I'd still be working. Yeah. And almost all of the advice in the FIRE community is index funds, diversified portfolio, max out retirement, best tax benefits, retirement. It's all the things I wouldn't do. So when I talk about real estate, I pretty much get kicked out of the groups.
Yeah, that's what I've seen as well. Absolutely. And it's really mind-boggling because again, what I took from this is, again, if you don't want me there, I'm not coming. And I was kicked out pariah really early. But I also pay attention. And there was a guy I followed early named, I think his handle was Financial Samurai. And I think he retired with something like $3 million. And he's had to go back to work. Inflation picks up 9.1%. You have an earnings recession. Your stock portfolio is not doing so great. You get a couple of kids. Damn it, I got to go back to work. Well, if you have a portfolio of real estate and inflation kicks in, the debt's fixed, value goes up, rents go up. real estate's looking like a much better option. I think the folks that are tied to fire movement that are so anti-real estate look worse today, right? It's great to be a, stock portfolio in a bull market, but how do you look when you take a 30% haircut? And it's I don't know why, but yeah, they hate real estate. They certainly hate long-term buy and hold real estate investors. And I don't get it, because we kind of want the same thing. We want middle class to be stronger. That's what I take from the fire movement. That's why I tried to contribute early. Is my whole goal is to strengthen the middle class, one person at a time. They didn't want to hear it. If you were talking maximize 401k and, scrimp on, Starbucks coffee and, get a bike and don't drive a car, they didn't want to talk to you. I'm like, man, you guys are missing the boat. So why don't you talk about somebody personally who was written up or interviewed and then written up in Fortune? They had the same kind of mindset: scrimp, save, scarcity. Where are they at today?
So I am not employed by Bigger Pockets, right? I love interacting with Bigger Pockets. I am one of the teaching assistants, which is, it's kind of almost a volunteer position to interact with their boot camps, which one just started, had my first week last week, and it'll go on for 10 weeks. But they have a social media manager, and she's the host of the Bigger Pockets Money podcast. And I've co-hosted a couple times just to fill in. So Mindy Jensen, I have a lot of respect for. She's actually helped. She's not really a real estate investor. She used real estate to invest in stocks to reach financial freedom. She had that live in flip, right? And it's not the bird, it's a live in flip. She moves into a place, makes it look like a war zone for a year or two, right? So her and her husband are awesome at working together and renovating a property. Once you've lived there 2 years, they can sell, up to $500,000.
Yep.
Tax-free.
I think it's a genius move that more people should do. Absolutely.
It is. It's a brilliant move, especially, and a little twist to it is if you own rentals and you are going to sell one, reverse house hack, move into that rental for a couple of years and sell, and you're making tens of thousands of dollars in capital gains where you don't have to pay tax there. So she did that, and she has her podcast is focused on money, and it's not quite the FI community where real estate isn't talked about. They do have some real estate people on there who've used real estate to reach financial freedom, but the majority is people who are focused on stocks, frugality, or they have this every Friday, or they'll do an interview of somebody comes on and shares, literally like opens themselves up to criticism from the public and says, here's my debt situation, here's my income, here's my goal. And they kind of walk them through it. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it's a cool strategy, show that I enjoy watching, because there's a whole spectrum of where we're at. There's like people who never figure out that there's good debt, never figure out how to get out of bad debt, and never take charge of their finances and become Walmart greeters at 80, right? They're still working, all the way to people who, the Codys and Christians of the world. I'm 19, can't buy a beer, I have 30 rentals, and 21, I have 100 rentals, right? So there's the whole spectrum there. So they have a pretty good gamut of people that come on, but every week Mindy focuses on and has the vernacular to say, in that situation, here's how you can improve your frugality. Here's how frugality will benefit you towards the goal you want to go.
Oh, so interesting. It's always cut.
Right. And she's actually helped me significantly. Like, there was a couple of things on my leases when I first started doing this, where I had non-refundable pet deposits, which voids your entire lease. A deposit by definition is refundable. Non-refundable makes that word thing. And then your lease has that word where everything on the lease has to be in compliance, and that's not, so nothing else matters. And so you make a small change to your lease, saves me a bunch of problems. Like, I watch her because she's super smart and knows a lot of stuff, but her mindset, and she was just on Ramit's show, interviewed, and then it got published as a couple of articles. They have a net worth a little over 4 million. They're mostly in stocks, and they argue internally, even over money. I struggled with this, right? That shift from save to invest because freedom's possible,
right,
to I've passed freedom. I don't need to save. I don't need to invest. And now I'm going to learn how to spend the money. I had to sit back and go, okay, so I raised 3 kids. I cooked at home every day. There's 5 years between each one. So there was, 10-year gap between the oldest and youngest, meaning I was a single parent for 28 years. I've cooked for 20. I'm never going to cook again in my life. How most people have a food budget. I have a food goal. My goal is to spend $1,000 a month on food.
Dude, lightweight, lightweight. I bet you
Well,
my food budget's like $3,000 a month.
right. So mine was like 300.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Right. So I mean, to go to
I got
1,000.
two people though. Fairness, I have two people.
Fair enough. Right. And a big transition, and Millennial Mike and I both talk about this, is the first time we went to a restaurant
Yeah.
and added a soda to our order.
Yeah.
That was the moment we were like, wow, I'm not as poor as I thought I was. Decades. I would get an appetizer because I'd have the kids, and the kids were going to eat whatever the
Yeah.
kids ordered. Right. And
Right.
that was the money budget. So now instead of a budget, I have a goal. Mindy, I don't think Mindy should start making spending goals, but it's a really hard transition, and she's stuck in it too.
It does become this condition almost, right? Because again, I don't know her story at all. I just read the Fortune article, and I knew you had a relationship with Bigger Pockets. I thought you knew Mindy, so that's why we wanted to talk about this.
Well, I've interviewed her a couple of times and promoted her book and co-hosted with her, but I've never actually.
Cool.
She lives in Colorado. I've never been there to meet her or anything. Yeah,
but you've interacted with her, which is what I thought. So thank you for this. When you're on something for so long and then you get to your goal, it does take, flipping that switch can be difficult, right? But it has to happen. I don't know. I mean, the fact in the article, and again, I don't know where this was in the interview, but apparently at some point their daughter ordered a $20 breakfast item, which was the most expensive thing on the menu. And that kind of caused stress. That's not good. That's not good.
I've had almost that exact same experience.
Yeah.
I go out with the kids and sit back, and luckily I didn't say anything. Right. I sat back in my head. I thought, oh, wait. That was when they were younger and you didn't make a lot of money, and every penny that you made, you were trying to put to work so you could have what you have now. To this point, so just from real estate, if you don't count any other side hustles that I have, got a couple. Like I still provide expert testimony for a couple of court cases, and that makes a little bit of money on the side, but it's like 5 hours a year probably. And I'm going to fly somewhere. I'm going to go back and see Matt. I'm not going to fly first class. Right. I have $17,000, and it'll be more after I make this move, that's going to come in that I don't have to work for. I might make a few texts and emails and handle handyman and any issues that come up, but that money is going to be in the account. But in my brain, I'm going to go fly back and see Matt. If I fly business, coach, whatever pops up when I go on Travelocity, I'm going to save probably $13,000 this month.
Wow. What
would be the difference if I only saved 12.5 and added $500 to upgrade the flight, right? But my brain is saying, don't do that. So I don't think I'm as far as Mindy is.
So this is what I would tell you, because again, I think Olivia and I kind of got past this. At least for us, I would argue that we're still kind of frugal. I mean, we were crazy frugal, right? We spent 50% of our income once we got through all the needs versus wants. So I understand where Mindy and Carl, which I believe, if I remember right, her husband's name, are. What Olivia and I have done is we've picked our thing, that we don't look at numbers. We don't look at price. But everything else, we're still relatively cheap. Olivia even jokes that we're still pretty cheap. But our thing is really twofold now. One is we eat out all the time. And I wasn't joking. I would be shocked if we don't spend $3,000 a month eating out. I mean, it could be 40. It could be $3,000 to $4,000. The other thing is travel. If we have any travel greater than 5 hours, we're sitting in business class at a minimum. But those are our two things. Those are the things we enjoy. Those are the things that bring us joy, which I think was Ramit's thing. Kind of wrapping this up. Find where your joy is. For you, maybe it's cars, trucks, travel. I don't know what it might be. Guns. Who knows? Find your thing that brings joy and take the spending barriers off. That's what we've done, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, it was a nice mind shift going to, I'm trying to spend this money when I eat out, than more so than what I'm trying to save. Travel, I don't know that I'm there yet. right. I'm planning 3 months. I'm going to be out of Washington State for the winter, but I'm not saying, oh, I'm going to go to London or Ireland or somewhere. I'm going to Thailand, where the dollar just goes so much further that my frugal mindset is an aspect. I mean, best scuba of anywhere that I've been ever, right? But so there's a factor there too. But my mind still says money's a factor in this. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just, if it's debilitating, if it causes arguments, if it causes stress to do, and what I would believe is an inconsequential amount.
Yeah.
Right. If it's a $10,000 decision, that's going to take some thought.
Yeah.
But if it's a
$20,
$100 decision.
Yeah. 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 So I guess the one piece of advice I would have for folks is, again, during the journey, it's absolutely required. I've been there. I know how it feels. I know how it is in your circle when people look at you like, what are you doing, you cheapskate? I get it. But at some point when you finally get to the finish line, I suggest, like Olivia and I have, find where your joy comes from and go enjoy it. You only get one go around in this thing. So find what brings you the maximum joy and go nuts. That's what we do each and every month with our food budget. So Dion, where can people find you?
Right here on YouTube, Dion Talk Financial Freedom, where I talk people into not spending money for a while so you can spend whatever you want forever.
That needs to be a t-shirt. Thanks, buddy.